I'm 90 years old. That sentence still feels strange in my mouth, like a coat that never quite fit, but I wore anyway because it was handed to me. 90 means you wake up every morning already tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the deeper kind. The kind that comes from having carried the same memories for decades, some of them sharp, some worn smooth, all of them heavy in their own way. I live alone now, not in a tragic way, not the kind people write about, just quietly. The house knows my footsteps too well. The floorboards creak before I step on them, as if they're warning each other that I'm coming. There are fewer sounds these days, no rushing, no urgency, just the ticking of a clock that has outlived almost everyone I bought it with. When you get this old, people expect wisdom from you. They expect neat lessons, tidy conclusions. What I have instead are regrets that don't shout, they whisper. They sit beside me when I drink my tea. They follow me from room to room like a shadow that knows my shape better than I do. If I'm honest, most of the pain in my life didn't come from things that went wrong. It came from things I delayed, things I assumed I could get to later. Later is a dangerous word. I want to talk about 7 things. I don't number them in my head anymore. They just rise up, one after another, like faces in an old photo album. Ordinary things, sensible things, the kind no one warns you about because everyone is doing them. The first thing I did for far too long was wait for permission to live the life I wanted. I waited for the right age, the right amount of money, the right moment when things felt stable enough to allow joy without guilt. I told myself I was being responsible. I had children, a marriage, a job that paid the bills and drained the color out of my days one drop at a time. I thought adulthood meant putting myself on hold. Years went by that way. Years where I was always almost there, almost ready, almost free. I didn't realize that life doesn't tap you on the shoulder and say, "You may begin now." It just keeps moving, whether you're paying attention or not. By the time I looked up, my hair was streaked with gray, my back ached, and the version of me who used to dream had gone quiet from neglect. Not dead, just tucked away somewhere I didn't visit anymore. The second thing I did was confuse being busy with being important. I filled my days until there was no space left to feel anything uncomfortable. Every hour had a purpose. Every task justified my existence. People praised me for it. They said I was dependable, strong, capable. I wore those words like armor. But busyness is a clever thief. It steals your attention and convinces you it's doing you a favor. While you're occupied, you don't have to ask hard questions. You don't have to sit with loneliness or dissatisfaction long enough to recognize it. When the busyness finally stopped, as it always does, I didn't know who I was without it. I had built my identity out of obligations. When they fell away, so did I. Another thing I did was stay in conversations that slowly erased me. I smiled when I wanted to cry. I nodded when I disagreed. I swallowed my words because they felt inconvenient. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I was avoiding conflict. I was being kind. What I was really doing was teaching people that my feelings were optional. You don't notice this happening at first. It happens in inches. A comment you let slide. A boundary you don't set because it feels awkward. A need you don't express because you don't want to seem demanding. Over time, the silence grows roots. By the time I realized how far I'd drifted from myself, I didn't trust my own voice anymore. It felt foreign, rusty. I had spent so long editing myself for other people that I forgot what the original sounded like. The fourth thing is one that still aches in a way I can't quite describe. I assumed the people I loved would always be there. I knew intellectually that death existed, but I didn't believe it applied to my ordinary days. I thought goodbyes were temporary by default. So I rushed them. I ended conversations early. I postponed visits. I told myself there would be time later, when things were calmer, when I wasn't so tired, when life slowed down. Life never slows down. It only ends. There are faces I can still see clearly because I didn't look at them long enough when I had the chance. Voices I can still hear because I didn't listen closely enough when they were alive. The last conversation you have with someone rarely announces itself as the last. That's what makes it cruel. It feels like any other day until suddenly it's the one you'd give anything to relive. Another thing I did was mistake endurance for virtue. I stayed in situations that hurt me because I thought leaving meant failing. I believed that if I could just tolerate enough, things would eventually improve. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the lesson isn't patience, it's honesty. I stayed too long in places that drained me because leaving felt selfish. I worried about what people would think. I worried about disrupting the image of the life I'd built. I didn't understand then that there's nothing noble about disappearing slowly. Your life doesn't ask you to endure it. It asks you to participate. The sixth thing I did was neglect my body in small, polite ways. I didn't abuse it. I just ignored it. I pushed past exhaustion. I treated pain like a nuisance instead of a message. I thought I was strong for working through it. Strength, I've learned, is listening before damage becomes permanent. Your body remembers every time you dismissed it, every night you didn't sleep, every meal you rushed through, every year you carried stress like it was part of your personality. Now my body speaks louder because I didn't listen when it whispered. And the last thing, the one that sits heaviest with me, is that I postponed joy because it felt impractical. I treated happiness like a reward instead of a necessity. I told myself I'd travel later, laugh later, create later, rest later. Later came, but I was too tired to enjoy it. Joy doesn't wait patiently. It's fragile. It needs attention. It needs to be chosen even when it feels inconvenient. I wish I had known that joy doesn't cheapen responsibility. It makes it bearable. There was a moment in my life when all of this became painfully clear. It wasn't a revelation. It was quieter than that. My husband was dying. We had been married for decades. We knew each other's routines better than our own thoughts. We had shared a life that looked successful from the outside, stable, respectable. Sitting beside his hospital bed, listening to the machine breathe for him, I realized how many conversations we had postponed, how many evenings we had filled with noise instead of presence. I loved him. I know that. But love without attention is a fragile thing. After he was gone, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't just quiet, it was final. I understood then that life isn't measured in milestones, it's measured in moments of attention, moments you choose to show up fully without distraction. Once enough time passes, there are things you can't go back and repair. Words you can't unsay, absences you can't explain away. People tell you that regret means you failed. That isn't true. Regret means you cared. It means you were paying attention, even if too late. At 90, there are no grand ambitions left, just small wishes. One more honest conversation. One more afternoon without rushing. One more chance to sit with someone and feel fully there. If I could speak to you directly without advice or instruction, I would simply say this: don't wait, not for permission, not for certainty, not for the perfect version of yourself. The life you have is happening now, whether you engage with it or not. Don't disappear politely. Don't save your voice for later. Don't assume love understands without being shown. Time is not cruel, it's just honest. Some evenings I sit by the window and watch the light fade. I don't fight it anymore, I let it go. I think about the woman I was, always preparing, always postponing. I wish I had known that being alive was reason enough. If this meant something to you, hold it gently. You don't need to change everything. Just don't wait as long as I did. That's all I have now.